This is the Audi E-Tron GT Quattro, finished in a rather dazzling Ascari blue metallic. Now, the one thing I'm not going to do in this video is offer a full review. Why? Well, because if I did, I'd be the 796th person to do so. So if you want to find out what it's like to live with an Audi E-Tron GT Quattro, then go and find somebody like Johnny Smith, who's probably done a far better job than I'll be doing today. What I am going to do though is write a written article about this car. So you can see that right now by heading over to our website, drivenchat.com/words, and you can see what I've thought in depth about owning one of these for a week. What I thought I'd do though, whilst we're here, whilst we've got a camera, is offer a quick walk around video, show you some of the highlights that I've discovered in running this for a week. The good stuff, the bad stuff, and some stuff that's just generally a bit confusing. Welcome to our latest video. So let's start with the easy observations, and that's how this thing looks from the outside. First things first, it's a car, and that's brilliant. As you will have known from previous EV reviews that I've done, I will always celebrate an EV in the shape of a car rather than a big, ridiculously blobby, oversized SUV like this one. This is brilliant. This is just fantastic. I genuinely think this might be the best looking EV on the market right now. And in fact, I'm not the only one that thinks so. The designer of this car has claimed that this is his best ever work, and I can see why. This thing looks great from every single angle, from the back to the rear quarter, big haunched arches, lovely lines that run through the car, haunched arches at the front, this lovely bonnet with a big scoop indentation at the front grille I think looks fantastic, the wheel design looks fantastic. Everything about it from every angle is a fantastic looking car. And let me remind you, it's a car, it's not a blobby SUV. It's a really, really good looking thing. It's also available in some really, really fantastic colours. And if you're a regular listener to our podcast, you'll know I have a particular affiliation with the colour swampy green. Audi don't call it swampy green, they call it tactical green. But you can get the e-tron in a beautiful swampy dark green, which I admit is a brave colour. But on this, I think it looks fantastic. Inside the car, it's equally as good. Now, the other thing to celebrate with the fact that it's a car is you've got loads of storage. You have, of course, got a lovely big boot here at the back to put all your bits and pieces in, but you also have a frunk under here with more storage. But how do you open the damn thing? I have figured it out, but I'd like to set Luke, who's just behind you on camera, a little challenge of him opening it to see just how long it takes to open and find how to open the front boot on an Audi E-Tron GT. Luke?
I really don't want to open this car.
Role reversal. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to start a stopwatch.
What?
Luke, and to make things fair,
okay,
there's the key.
here's the key.
Open the frunk.
Is there a manual?
There is a manual, but I won't allow you to use it because it should be intuitive. No, just a case of opening the frunk. You just.
There's the rear one.
Yes, we found the rear one. I should stress, Luke is genuinely a bona fide petrol head. He's not an amateur when it comes to cars. Owns some really cool cars, so this should be an easy thing. It's now opening the door. See if it's on the sill. We are 1 minute and 4 seconds. Oh no, here we are. We're going around the other side. He's found it.
Yes.
1 minute and 16 seconds. That's actually the best so far.
Oh. Okay, well,
That's pretty good. Well done.
it's got to be somewhere, right?
It's got to be somewhere, but it has to be the strangest location for a button.
Yeah.
And I have seen people doing other reviews who have finished their review by saying, I don't even know how to open the frunk. So there you go.
It's pretty deep.
It's not too bad.
No,
You can fit a crate, one of those things in it.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Luke. It's quite nice in here as well. Really well designed, in fact. There's a lot that I just think is really well thought out. I am perhaps a little concerned that maybe some of the interior features might age badly, especially when considering the design layout of some new BMWs, for example, and the Porsche Taycan, which of course, perhaps no secret, is the same platform as this one. I do think those interiors might age a little better than this one, but for now, I think this is a very smart place to be. I think there's a great mixture of touchscreen as well as physical buttons for things like heated seats and for the air conditioning controls. That I think is vital, but it doesn't come without its quirks, and I will come to that a little bit later. Everything else is just exactly as you'd want it to be. I celebrate the fact from the outside that it feels and looks like a car, and in here it feels and looks like a car with some really nice features, including a lovely big glass panoramic roof and just general familiarity. And there's a lot to be said for familiarity, especially in this ever-changing, ever-evolving world of electric cars. So, what about the quirks? What about the not-so-good things? Well, there are a couple. First thing is, just from a driver's point of view, driving at night time, the screens can be quite bright, and there's no quick way to dim them down. Usually you'd look down to the dashboard, there'd be a little twisty knob or a little button you can press down. No option to do that here. I have to go into the menu settings, find the car settings, find the display settings, and then only there I can turn the brightness down. I do find that a little bit annoying. Now that's a bit of a weird ergonomic thing. On the another subject of ergonomics is seating position. Now the seats themselves are very comfortable. This is an entry-level car, it's worth pointing that out. £85,000 for this particular car gets you pretty much everything that you see. The seats are great, the position for driving is great, and I've tried multiple seating positions and distances from the wheel. My problem is my left elbow. I have nowhere to put it. In fact, when I drive along, the only way to sit comfortably is to take my hand off the wheel and put my arm back onto the centre armrest. If it's not there, and I'm not hovering mid-air like I'd be racing a car, then I'm just constantly bashing it on very, very firm surfaces. On the subject of this firm surface, again, this is a spec option. The car has been spec'd with piano black interior. I would definitely avoid piano black interior. It's not a good choice for in-cars. It looks very smart in photographs. It looks very good in showrooms. But from a practical user point of view, very quickly it gets covered in dust. And it looks like whoever was driving this car before me might have spilt some coffee, which has then trickled down and gathered at the bottom, right at the very front. So that's not ideal either. So it is worth pointing out that this is an entry-level car, all things said and done. £85,000 or thereabouts is going to get you the car that you see here, albeit with a couple of little options. The paint, for example, is a slight option, as is some other aesthetic things like performance sound, which is artificial sound that's plumbed in. I'll moan about that later, don't worry. So, should we go for a little drive and show you this thing's party trick? Actually, before I get going, there is one other thing, a strange thing, and a slightly concerning thing about this car that I feel I should show you, and it involves turning the car on. Now to demonstrate, let me turn it off. Car's off. I'm going to get out of the car, I'm going to lock the car, and then I'm going to get back in. Bear with me. Car is locked. Car is unlocked. I open the door, I get into the car, and I put the key down there. Now at no point have I turned the car on. I haven't hit the start-stop button at all, and yet the car is active, it's live, it's ready to go. I've not told the car I want to go on. However, we're on, we're moving. Now, that might be a convenience feature. It might be something clever in the settings that I can turn off. It might have some sort of clever thing that recognises that I'm a big person and I've got into the car. But there is a possibility that I might not be a big person that's got into the car. I might be a child. I might have given these keys to a younger relative, a sibling, a child, and asked them to go and get something from the car. And by getting into the car with the key, suddenly it's live and ready to go. And you don't need to be a rocket surgeon to work out that hitting a car like that, or even looking backwards and repositioning your hand, might then result in the car reversing back. That, to me, seems like a really, really bizarre design. And I sincerely hope that you can turn that off, because that just seems dangerous. Anyway, let's do the fun stuff. Launch control. So, launch control. What I'll do is I'll put the car into dynamic mode. I'll turn the traction onto the first setting of off. And then what I'm going to do is come to a complete stop. Just there. Foot hard on the brake. Foot hard on the throttle. 3, 2, 1. That's 60. It was 60 way before I said that's 60, but you get the idea. The RS is a trim that you can get this e-tron in, which is even more powerful, even faster. But my question is, why? Why do you need it to be faster than that? What an absolutely bonkers thing. I might do it on the way back, just for a laugh. Because that's the other good thing about this e-tron GT, is that a bit like the Taycan, which it shares its platform with, you can do this over and over and over and over again. I think once the battery gets to a certain point and depletes, then perhaps the power is reduced slightly, but up until that point, you can just keep doing this. Launch it again and again and again and again. So, shall we? Foot hard on the brake, mash the throttle, and go. What's amazing is you get like a second surge of power. Just when you think it's done it enough, you've had all the torque there is, it then just goes bam, there's some more. What a thing. As I've mentioned a couple of times, this is an £85,000 car with entry-level specs. So that's the entry-level seats, the entry-level infotainment system, bog standard audio, all of it just as you would expect to find for that sort of money. If you wanted to go and add some options on, then things perhaps unsurprisingly do get a little bit expensive. The Comfort and Sound Pack Plus, for example, will set you about £8,100. That gives you better seats and a premium audio system. If you want things like adaptive cruise control, that's about 1,300 quid as an option as well. So that comes in at quite a fee. A very interesting one is the trim for the seats. If you want leather, if you want a full leather pack inside your car on top of your Comfort and Sound Pack, then you are going to have to pay £1,500 for that privilege. But here's the really weird one. If you want no leather, if you want an anti-leather interior, that will cost you nearly £1,000 more. So that's £2,500 to not kill any cows. Seems a bit strange to me. I would have thought that the leather would be the more expensive option, but no. There are additional things you'll have to consider as well, including if this is your first electric car, then you're probably going to want to have a little bit of cash left over to invest in a wall charger at home. The reason I recommend that is because if you're relying on the public charging network like I am, then that might get quite painful. For example, as somebody that doesn't have a charging port at home, I'm reliant on the public charging network, and that does get quite expensive. This morning, before setting off to film, I had 20% left in the battery, and I needed to go and rely on a fast charger to put some power into the battery. I found one. It was free, it was available, that was great. Plugged in, and I was rewarded with 100% battery after about an hour and 10 minutes. The charge itself gave me about 200 miles, and that is plenty for what I need to do today. It did, however, cost. and it cost me £55. Now, neither you, me, or anyone else watching this video needs to be a mathematician to work out that £55 for 200 miles isn't great value. In fact, I've got a clunky old diesel SUV that does better mileage for that sort of money on good old-fashioned fossil fuels. If you have got a charge port at home though, that's where you are going to see the benefits, because an overnight charge at a reduced electricity rate, even at the most extortionate prices we're paying right now, should be no more than £10 to charge the car up overnight. That of course may fluctuate if prices continue to go crazy, but £10 for that sort of mileage is far more reasonable than 50. Now, one other quirky thing worth pointing out as I'm driving and as I'm in the driving seat is the brake pedal. Now, this is a really strange one because the brakes in the E-Tron GT are not like brakes I've experienced in any other car at all. They work perfectly fine. However, the car itself, as you might expect, being an EV, is relying on regen. It wants to try and utilize as much kinetic power as possible when hitting the brake pedal, which means that you're not necessarily using brake pads and calipers to slow the car down. Of course, it does have brake pads and calipers, but it will primarily use kinetic energy first, and then, if it needs to, will apply power to the brake discs and brake pads. So that gives quite a strange sensation. It doesn't give you that initial bite that perhaps you'd come to expect when driving. And I've had a couple of times where I've just touched the brakes to slow down and then needing to really hit the brakes, and you can almost feel like a two-step difference in the way the pedal feels. It's quite strange. Not unpleasant, it's not a criticism, but it is something that might take some getting used to. Now, driving the car, as you might expect with most modern performance cars, you have got multiple driver modes, which means you can go from a variance of settings, including everything from Eco, which is where you're able to redeem as much power from the battery as possible. That reduces things like the air conditioning usage in the car. It regens more from the braking and reduces the overall top speed and acceleration performance. But that is no bad thing if you're driving along and just want to get from A to B. It makes perfect sense to just stay in that mode at all times. You have got a happy medium, which is comfort, so that means you can drive along and have best of both. The car will then also figure out, depending on your driving style, if it thinks it warrants lots of power or no power. And I have noticed as well that on the motorway, if you perhaps accidentally creep up to above the speed limit, what happens is at about 85, the car will just very naturally kind of discourage you from going any faster, which of course preserves the battery life and keeps the speeding tickets away from your letterbox, which is always a good thing. Now, whilst we're on the subject of driver modes, it's worth mentioning something that I teased earlier, something else I can grumble about, and that is the synthetic sounds that are plumbed into the car. Now, even as standard, driving along in comfort mode, the car does emit a sound. It plays an external sound when traveling at low speeds. That's to warn pedestrians so that people can hear you. Although saying that, I have noticed this morning that not everyone can hear you coming, even when you're crawling along at a very slow speed. But also, there's the noises that happen inside the car, and these get quite interesting. As standard, does sound a little bit like a new London Underground train, but if I put the car into performance mode by hitting the drive select, or sorry, dynamic mode, then we're rewarded with a really quite strange, more of a kind of sci-fi futuristic drone. Now, that is an option, worth noting that, and whilst it's not thousands, it is 500 quid, and I can't really work out who's going into the Audi dealership speccing their E-Tron GT and then paying 500 quid for this. Not for me, thanks. In efficiency mode, which I've just switched it over to now, I'll be honest, I was expecting a bit more from the braking regen. I have got the ability to adapt how the regen works through the paddles. You might have noticed the paddles on the steering wheel and wondered what they're for. Well, that is for generating more or less regen. I can't quite do one pedal driving like I could do in the BMW i4. That I can deal with, I can kind of come to terms with that, but I was hoping for perhaps a little bit more regen, but but this car just doesn't offer it. But as you can probably hear, driving at 60 in efficiency mode, so no artificial sounds coming in, it's really quite a pleasant place to be. I've got no wind noise, tyre noise is reduced massively. They've done a really, really good job with soundproofing around the wheel arches. It's a pleasant place to be, with the stereo on or with the stereo off. Quite happy just bumbling along. Right, that's your lot for now, because as I said, it wasn't going to be a full review, and I will be doing a full written review on the Driven Chat website, addressing all sorts of aspects of what this thing is like, including why it has 2 charging points, one on each side. So for that, head on over to drivenchat.com/words and read my article. For now, I will say thank you very much for watching this. If you're watching us on YouTube, please be so kind to perhaps hit that subscribe button and the little bell notification so you can see when we upload the next video. There are plenty more videos for you to see, including a recent battle of the minis, Mini E versus John Cooper Works. Which one is best? You can find that on the channel. For now, I'll say thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.